we are talking about what I am calling building your family's fortress of boundaries, right? But it's the idea of there are two things that help children of all ages, from toddlers to teens to adults, really thrive. It's freedom and it's boundaries.
Structure.
And initially, that seems like a very contradictory thing. You're like, wait, how can I give my children freedom and give them boundaries at the same time? Isn't it like one or the other? They have freedom or they have boundaries. And for us, at least, we have found that the magic place is when you have freedom within boundaries. And so that's why I like to use this. We kind of were talking about this and we came up with this image or analogy that to me is perfect. It's like building a little fortress, like a castle, your family fortress, that are the boundaries. And within that fortress, within that courtyard, your children have freedom. And when we can create an environment like that, it's literally like magic because it allows our children to have this space, this place where they can practice making choices, making decisions, thinking, analyzing, failing, but it's a safe place. It's a place where they're not going to fail miserably, right? Because let me illustrate this with the opposite of what generally happens. Many parents either one give no boundaries, and so their children have complete freedom and they make all kinds of mistakes and they are failing all the time, but they're not necessarily learning from their failures because they don't have guidance, they don't have mentoring, they don't have boundaries. Or there's so many boundaries and rules that they never get to practice making decisions. And then when they move away from the parents, they're like, woohoo, freedom. And then they fail because they don't know how to build, that they never built those decision making muscles. Those are the two extremes we don't want. We want them to practice making decisions, but it needs to be within clear boundaries and this safety net so that they're not ending up as a drug addict. This is, of course, the worst case scenarios of things that happen with too much freedom. Drug addicts, pregnant early, suicidal. Those are some of the things we see. In fact, I literally just got an email right before this. I didn't even tell you. My assistant just sent it to me of this mom saying, my daughter's 13. She's suicidal. Help. We need help. Right? Those are the types of things that happen when we have the extremes of one way or the other. So that's why I want to talk about this and teach how to do this so that we can create this family structure that helps us to have freedom and boundaries and help our children develop in a way that is ideal for their personal growth. Because we all want children that grow up to be adults who make good decisions and to know how to think and to know how to analyze and weigh options and be able to make a decision and follow through with it, right? But that doesn't happen automatically when they get old enough. That's something that develops over time, day by day, by doing little things like serving your plate, right? And deciding how much food to put on your plate. All of that is part of the decision making muscle building process.
Some extreme examples that we've seen. Almost every eating disorder is a rebellion against control. And I mean, I learned this by studying psychology books, just reading lots and lots of psychology books and realizing, oh, it makes
Let's clarify
perfect sense.
Let's clarify it for a second. Yes, eating disorders, as in anorexia, bulimia, like the actual eating disorders. But in fact, we've seen through experience and through research or study that almost all food issues are connected to control. So when a child feels overly controlled, they use the one thing, not the one thing, they use one of the things they feel like they have
See,
power over, and
the,
that's food.
and they use it as I'm not going to eat and you can't make me. Well, what it is, it's just without knowing it, it's a subconscious act for freedom. And so when there's food battles, and interestingly, this is one of the most common fights among children and parents. Parents want to force their kids to eat. And so then the kid's like, "Well, I don't like being forced. You're putting walls and boundaries and control. You're trying to control me. Well, how can I control myself? How can I have freedom? Well, I'm just not going to eat." And so it turns this battle, and at the extreme end, it's anorexia and bulimia, which is fascinating, right? So too much control, and we're building the walls like this, and I'm like, I'm going to protect you because I love you so much.
You
You're
need to
going to
eat
do
this and this and this so you're
exactly what I
healthy.
say,
You get all the nutrients you need.
and kids don't thrive. And then others, like Rachel said, they kind of take down all walls and say, "Do what you want, child," and the kid runs right off the cliff into the river. And you're like, yeah, okay, that didn't work.
Or if we stick with the food example, okay, I'm not going to control or tell you what to eat. So the kid only eats
Cotton candy.
cotton candy and Oreos all day long
Like
because
it's just,
that's all they'll eat. Or it's something like chicken nuggets,
and the
right?
parents are like,
French fries
"I'm not gonna control. I just let them make their own choices." Like, well, yeah, at 5, they're gonna
or
choose
three.
cotton candy. Like, come on. So, like, I don't know. The reason I'm explaining this is Rachel and I are so excited about this whole idea, and it just works. It is so powerful. It's so powerful. You build the fortress, but it's big and there's a lot of space inside, and you allow the freedom to make choices within safe boundaries. It just works so well.
Yes. So if we want or need, we can go into more specifics with certain things like the food or whatever. So kind of think of that as we're going through. But I do want to talk about some key principles before we kind of dive into that. So again, we want to emphasize that a boundary is not meant to be a cage. It's not meant to be like super controlling, but it is there to provide safety, right? It's important, but it's not caging and restricting a child. We've talked about the head gates. Are you guys familiar with that term? Have I used it enough that you know what I'm talking about? If So a head gate, if you live like on a farm, or we used to live in this small farming town when we were first married, and we literally watered our lawn with irrigation water, and we would close our head gate when it was our day to water, and it would fill up and overflow and flood our lawn, and that's how we watered the lawn. But a head gate is simply something you can either raise or lower. And if you have multiple ditches going different places in your field, like that's how you direct the flow of the water. And so we learned that as a principle in our parenting early on of the if you want to direct your children without controlling them, you use a head gates philosophy. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about the fortress boundaries, but then we're also going to talk about using head gates within the fortress because there is a difference. There's the head gate. There are certain things that are like, no, this is a boundary. This is a hard and fast rule. Like, nope, just not allowed. Like in our house, name calling, never allowed. Hitting, unless you're like sparring in the gym like they were today, not allowed, right? You're allowed to hit when you're sparring, you're not allowed to hit otherwise. So those are the hard and fast boundaries. But then we have the head gates, which one of which is hitting in the gym. If you want to hit, you can take that to the gym. You can hit a punching bag. You can hit your dad when you're sparring with him. There's certain places where certain things are allowed. That's the head gates philosophy. So we're going to talk through both of those. So we mentioned we have to have freedom and we have to have the fortress. We need both to create this ideal environment for the growth of our children. Respectful speech, that's another one that's, like a fortress boundary. So, kind of think it through this as we're going through it. Think through some examples in your own life of like, yeah, that for sure for me and our family, that is a fortress boundary. We are not going to cross that line. One of the things in our home is sugar. We literally just have no sugar at all in the house. Nothing with sugar. We read every single ingredient. We mostly buy Whole Foods anyways. So we don't buy a lot of things that have ingredients, but we read every single ingredient. We have nothing in our house that has sugar, high fructose corn syrup, seed oils. Like that's just one of our boundaries that we developed over time, right? It didn't come, like it wasn't like a fast, quick thing, but over time we built up that boundary. So that's another example of something in our life that it's not a head gate type thing. It's a boundary. Other examples are some of your family values, right? Like maybe honesty is one of them, or maybe it's not lying, right? Things like that. So think through. I literally just said the
Maybe
same
it's honesty or
thing. Or
maybe it's
not
not
lying.
lying.
Maybe it's
You
one or
know,
the other.
pick
Like,
pick
you
one
don't know.
pick one of those.
I don't know. Anyways, you know what I'm saying.
For me, one of mine was no video games. As I did research about the effect of video games when I met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gamers and saw the difference, I was like, yeah, that for me, that's one of my boundaries. I'm putting that one up.
But that was something that we had to negotiate through over probably a period of a couple years or at least of because I wasn't so sure. It's like, well, wait, I don't know. Maybe they're not so bad. Maybe there's some benefits to them that maybe there's some learning that can happen, you know? And so I went through that whole process until I finally also came around to the belief that it was more about the exchange rate. The time they were spending gaming could have been used in other things that were ultimately more beneficial. So again, that became one of our fortress walls. So I want you to think through this
Ooh, Let me
of
let me
what are some of our fortress walls and write them down as we're going along.
as you're reading more and more books and you're interacting with people and places and things and ideas, you start learning about the research of something. You're like, okay, that's it. So, those of you who've read The Anxious Generation
Mhm.
by Jonathan Haidt, well, if you haven't, please do. But he, through all massive amounts of research, and I mean, basically his stuff, I don't think there's any way you could argue against the research he's discovered and shared. It's not even his own research; he's just sharing it. But basically, hard line: no social media for girls before the age of 16. Hard line, and I 100% agree. And now the data is so clear that social media causes, not just contributes, it causes mental illness for young women. And so right there, you read that, you're like, okay, hard boundary. That one's going up. But you don't just do it to be mean or rude or just like, I'm the dictator here and that's that. You teach your daughters and your sons why, so that they're like, okay, I don't necessarily like it, but I totally get it. I respect the boundary. But for us, that's a perfect example of a boundary. It's like no smartphones before I think 12 or
At
14,
least, yeah.
and then no
Without
no social media for girls before 16. And then he just says, just flat out, the data is very clear. Video games make boys less successful. And so I'm like, bam, bam, that's where we're putting up our boundaries. And those are just some examples.